Greetings! Today, on How Stuff Works, we're going to be talking about the Internet. Very interesting. Alright, so, the Internet. Basically, the Internet is something where if something's on the Internet, then from anywhere else on the Internet you can access it, right? Okay. Not quite right. Because the Internet's not really one entity. The Internet's a whole bunch of these things called servers. Server, and server, lots of servers, and this is stored on a server somewhere. Okay, anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, the Internet is a collection of servers. A server is basically, as my roommate James liked to put it, a computer that does nothing but talk to other computers. Anyway, so, how, if you were looking up some stuff on the Internet, how does your computer know where to find the stuff? This is basically how the Internet works. Your computer asks for stuff from a server somewhere, and the server sends it back. But the fun part is, how does it get there, and how does it get back? Okay, so, first of all, your computer connects to a local server. Or, you know, if you're running a mainframe, then you might have your own server. But anyway, your computer connects to a local server. And it tells the server what it's looking for. Like the name of the web page or whatever. This server then asks the DNS server, which is a special kind of server which keeps list of all the addresses of the servers with various stuff on them. So it's the one that connects the names to the addresses. It's like a phone book. So say you wanted to find Google.com or welcome to Kazakhstan.com or whatever. Then the server will take that and it'll say, okay, Google.com, DNS server, tell me the IP address. IP address just means, you know, Internet Protocol address or something like that. Anyway, DNS server stands for Domain Name Server, and I didn't make that up. The domain name server says, okay, given the domain name, here's the address, and it sends it back to this server. Then this server says, okay, now that I have the address, I'm going to talk to this server. But see, the problem is that these two servers may not be directly connected. This server and this server may not have a direct wire connecting them. So, again, we'll use the James example. It's like you call your friend, and you tell him to call his friend, who then calls his friend, etc., 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 until you finally get to the person who you wanted. But then they can call you straight back, right? Okay, so the deal is that not quite, but the deal is that this server then asks a whole chain of servers until it finally gets to the server that has the stuff you want on it. Google.com, welcome to Kazakhstan.com, whatever. Then this server takes your request, which just happens to include your address, and then it uses that to find the fastest way to send the information back to you. Let's not go into how that works. Anyway, because the deal is that the incoming request path is usually different from the outgoing return path. So, this server then sends what you wanted to know back here. Fun! Okay. I didn't really get to say boom this episode. I need to find some way to work that in. So, server, DNS server, goes back to original server, goes to whole network of servers, goes to stuff, welcome to Kazakhstan, and then welcome to Kazakhstan goes back to your computer. So, fairly simple, right? Okay, now the fun part. What medium does this stuff transfer over? Okay, so a lot of the world's internet traffic goes actually over this arrow. So this arrow could be telephone wires. A lot of the world's internet traffic goes over telephone wires. But those are kind of slow sometimes because people are using the telephone as well, and they don't have as much bandwidth as other forms of transmission. So there's also fiber optic wires, which also carry telephone transmissions, but they have a higher bandwidth, so you can cram both telephone transmissions and internet signals in there all at once and not have as many speed issues. And for people who live way out in the boonies, they have satellites. So the way those work is that it sends a signal up the satellite processes the signal, sends it back down to some elsewhere. Sounds fairly simple, not really. And then there's wireless. Wireless is an amazing thing. Essentially, you have a wireless router. So let's get rid of this picture. Okay. And you have a wireless router. Let's make a little box, something like this. And this thing is basically a small local server. And it sends out waves. Then, say your iPhone or something, here's you. With your iPhone. I know, iPhones are a lot smaller than that, but I can't draw. Okay, so when your iPhone, so first things first, your iPhone has to realize that this thing's here. So your iPhone and this thing are continually sending little messages back and forth to each other to tell each other that they're still in existence, that they haven't moved out of range, and that, you know, their car hasn't blown up or something. Boom. Okay. So when you order a web page on your iPhone or whatever wireless device, like this laptop I'm using to record this, this thing sends the message here, and then this one sends back a message saying, "Okay, I got it. I'm working on it." And then it goes, and then this one, since it's wired to, you know, DNS server, then it goes to the DNS server, etc., and does the whole thing we talked about earlier. Now, then it sends back and says, "Okay, I got it." Now, that's all very, very nice if there's just one of you. But if there's about 100 of you, all with your little iPhones, then this is a lot slower because it has to talk to all of you. And then you look more like this. Anyway, right, for some reason I cannot get the eyes to show up on the board unless I draw them really big. Sorry, got sidetracked. Okay. So that's kind of how wireless works. Okay, now the thing, again, James, my roommate, always complains about with wireless is that you can have two wireless devices and you can hold your device up right next to the wireless router and it still might not be able to find the router. Okay. Wireless has some issues because, particularly with stuff like this, with like little cell phone, little objects like cell phones or stuff like that, because the signals that those send out, the signal that they send back is really weak. So this thing has to be able to pick them up. The problem is that sometimes this thing isn't able to filter out the signals from here from the noise. So occasionally your wireless will freaks out. Anyway, right. Don't really have time to explain that very well. Okay, so we've covered wireless, we've covered satellites, sort of. We've covered hardwired communications. We've covered DNS servers and all that. Was there anything else? No, not that I can think of. Anyway, the internet. 10-minute explanation of sort of how it works. Adios. See you.